Digital Gonzo, episode 95, dated Thursday the 16th of August 2012, Avatar: The Last Airbender. There are times when constructing this podcast that I and my guests ask you to trust us. Mostly this isn't the case, and we're talking about very popular movies you'll already have seen, like Star Wars, Back to the Future, The Avengers, safe bets. Occasionally we'll cover something like World War Z, an excellent book that is written for adults and will set you back the grand total of $5.99. Or we'll suggest you read Batman Hush, a graphic novel aimed at adults and featuring a character you know very well. Right now, and on this very episode, if you will allow us, we are going to attempt to convince the 97% of you in the community that have not yet had the pleasure of this animated show that it is worth investing probably around £40 if you're buying the DVDs, nothing if you're watching it on Netflix, but definitely, either way, just over 20 hours of your life. I can assure you now that by the time many of you are finished, you will be thanking us from the bottom of your hearts for opening this doorway for you. In fact, I'm so confident that if you make a decision to invest your time and money into this show based on what we're about to say and the work we're going to liken it to, that you will be happy with the results, that I'm offering the first Gonzo Planet solid gold guarantee. That means if you get to the end and you're not happy, contact me personally by email and we will sort something out. But I honestly don't think I'm going to be getting many emails. That is how confident I am on this. Assembled with me are some of Gonzo's finest, folks who feel very strongly about Avatar and are prepared to extensively discuss the whys and wherefores. First up, professional animator at Pixar, animation aficionado, and the voice and co-creator of the greatest animated lectures on the video games industry to be found on this internet. From Extra Credits, Mr. Daniel Floyd.
Hello.
Hello. Next, the creator of the Animation Archives, the first show of which was about Avatar and which convinced me to invest in the series in the first place, Mr. Joshua Garrity.
Hello there.
From Gonzo Planet, a long-time animation, anime and comic book fanatic, Mr. Jerome McIntosh.
Good day, sir.
Also of Gonzo Planet, the ever-patient, ever-passionate, long-suffering but always ready for more, Mrs. Sharon Shaw.
Hello.
And finally, having had his podcast cherry well and truly busted by Neil Taylor and myself on a recent KDS 2.0, Mr. Dwayne Griffiths, also known as Kai Enix Gideon, on the forums.
Hello.
This first instalment is going to be what I will now be calling a sizzle show. Imagine you're in a restaurant and the waiter is trying to make your mouth water about a particularly delicious dish, only this guy really loves what he's selling. There will be no spoilers. If you really don't want to know anything, then just go start watching now. And if you don't mind knowing a little more going in, please allow us to flesh out the world for you, much like we did with Game of Thrones. The Legend of Aang, which is called The Last Airbender in America, is composed of 3 seasons. Next week we'll be covering the first season, which is called Book 1, Water. That one really will contain spoilers, but only up to the end of that season. The week after we'll be covering Book 2, Earth, in exactly the same way, and then the week after that, Book 3, Fire. The 5th and final episode, airing the following week, will be The Legend of Korra, which is the first season of the follow-up story to The Legend of Aang. To briefly summarise the plot. Actually, I'm going to let Katara do that. She gets it right every show.
Water. Earth. Fire. Air. Long ago, the 4 nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. 100 years passed and my brother and I discovered the new Avatar, an airbender named Aang. And although his airbending skills are great, he has a lot to learn before he's ready to save anyone. But I believe Aang can save the world.
Avatar was originally positioned as appealing to 6 to 11-year-old boys and hopefully some girls. This is reflected in its gentle and somewhat goofy first few episodes. However, the themes became more mature as time went on, and focus fell on character growth, evolving into something appealing to a far broader and indeed older audience. Eventually, Legend of Korra emerged this year and has been roundly praised as one of the best shows, not only animated, but on TV in general this year. This kiddie hump, as it were, is the biggest one you will have to get over, and it will be roughly 13 episodes. But we tell you now that you must persevere and you will reap the rewards. It becomes steadily more compulsive, and most of us consumed the final season in just a few joyful, nail-biting marathon sessions. Is that largely agreed across the group?
Yes. Yeah. Pretty much half of season 3 in one day, which I'm not proud to admit, but I got a bit attached.
We just need to put the hours that you're going to spend on this in perspective. It's not like 20 hours of, oh, for goodness sake, when's this thing going to start? It's like the first few hours of, oh, okay. And then before you know it, you'll be like, right, next one, please. Next one, please. Next one. So it's not hard going at all in the slightest once you get through that first hump.
Even at the beginning, in all fairness, it's still fun. It's just not as compelling at the very beginning as it is later on.
It's just the kind of fun where kids skate on penguins.
You'll have a first impression of seeing it and thinking, oh, this is a pretty good kids show. I'm impressed. But I don't know if I could sit and watch this. I don't know if I could watch this beginning to end. Just push through that feeling, because into season 2, you will be very dedicated to watching this beginning to end.
One of the ways we're going to start off is by reviewing the 2010 film directed by M. Night Shyamalan. This is actually only going to be part of this overall show, because as much as we'd like to spit bile at this wretched Hollywood distortion of our beloved Avatar, it really doesn't deserve either our time or yours. These podcasts are better served as inspirational pieces rather than expressions of mass disgust. Instead, I'm going to try to turn every flaw in this deeply mismanaged, and to coin the most appropriate phrase, multi-buggered cinematic offence into a commendation for the animated show. So we'll start with some character studies. I will call out a character, and you guys give me one-word descriptions of their personality, or a couple of words if you absolutely must, but not long diatribes. You need to look at their personality and purpose on the animated series. Okay, ready? We will start off with Sokka.
Hurry up, Sokka! Just a guy with a boomerang. I didn't ask for all this flying and magic.
Comic relief, the everyman.
Very grounded.
Yeah, the audience's eyes, I would describe him as well, because he's very much, because he's not a bender.
Yeah.
He's seeing the world the same way we're seeing the world, so he's asking the questions we'd ask. So, what the hell is that? And you know, we can relate to him because of that. But he's also, I don't think it's fair to just squarely put him in the comic relief camp.
No, he is very capable.
Yes, he is. He does eventually become quite a respected warrior, and he cares about the group. He's a really valuable member of the team. He's a good planner. Well, when it counts. Sometimes he's an idiot, but when it really matters, he's reliable.
To predict the fate of the whole village.
That cloud kind of looks like a fluffy bunny.
You better hope that's not a bunny. The fluffy bunny cloud forecasts doom and destruction.
Do you even hear yourself?
For the vast majority of uninitiated folks, Sokka is one of two teenagers who finds this bald kid Aang in the ice where they live. They're Inuit-style people, and they live down in the South Pole. He's the older brother of Katara, and he is the cynic of the group, which is a really good way of making sure that it doesn't become too mystical and disappear up its own butt.
Skeptic, I'd say, rather than cynic.
Yes. He is kind of cynical, but only a bit.
Yeah, there's a line where
Maybe whatever I have to do will just come to me. I think you can do it, Aang.
Yeah. We're all gonna get eaten by a spirit monster.
Okay, again, to flesh out this character a bit, he's the only guy left in this tribe of, older than about 7 or 8, and he has kind of been given the mantle of hunter and trainer of all the warriors. His and Katara's mother was killed a few years ago in a Fire Nation raid, and so he's kind of had to shoulder a lot of responsibility. But similarly, Katara has had to become kind of the mother of that particular dynamic. He is very reliant on his beloved boomerang, and there's a lot of mileage gotten from this particular accessory throughout the series.
We're gonna have to work pretty hard to cut through that.
What's this we stuff? Aang and I are gonna have to do all the work.
Look, I'm the plan guy. You two are the cut stuff up with waterbending guys. Together, we're Team Avatar.
He's one of the funniest characters I've seen in a TV show. I would actually compare him, if we're going to compare it to other TV shows, the closest comparison would be something like Wash from Firefly.
Yeah, Xander from Buffy.
He's very much that comic relief character, but there is more to him than that. You do care about him, and when stuff goes bad, you feel for the guy. Yeah. But you love him as well because he picks you up when you're down as well, because he is funny.
And I was so mean to her.
Yeah, you two were pretty much jerks.
Thanks, Sokka.
No problem.
He's not a straight-out Han Solo type in that he's not just, disparaging of the notion of all of the spirituality that Aang's toting, but it's as far as he's concerned, it's not really for him. He definitely fills the Han Solo role in the group.
It feels like he's kind of caught up in it, because he's not the most capable member of the team. Later on, there are characters like Toph and so forth who are really badasses. What makes him great is that he's there when you need him to be. He's super reliable. He's not a coward. He's brave. He's
braver than he is capable.
He's very practical, though, I think, possibly because he hasn't got bending to rely on like the others do.
He thinks of the ideas that the others just never think of because they rely so much on their bending.
In a similar way to Darcy in Thor, as Josh said, she says what the audience is thinking in a funny and well-timed way.
He functions very well as the funny character, but also as the straight man, stick-in-the-mud character for funny things to happen to.
Yeah.
He's kind of all-purpose.
He's got enough dignity for when terrible things happen to him, it's funny.
It's only funny if the sap's got dignity.
True, and he has that.
Now come back, Boomerang.
Okay, so, right, to now bring this particular character study full circle, how much of that is present in the Sokka character as portrayed in M. Night Shyamalan's 2010 film, The Last Airbender?
0%.
Instead of taking inspiration from the TV show, I think the actor in this film took inspiration from a tree. It's just so he's not funny at all. He's just Mr. Exposition. It's just like, okay, we're going to go do these things. Is that okay, Aang? Yes.
Bear in mind, he doesn't have any funny lines to deliver, even if he is a funny person. He's also not directed to be funny. So there was no intention in the making of this film to make Sokka a source of amusement or any of the other things we just discussed.
He does actually say at one point in the film, okay, Aang, so we're going to go from the South Pole to the North Pole to find you a waterbending trainer, and on the way, let's stop off at some Earth Kingdom villages and see if we can instigate some kind of revolution against the Fire Nation. He almost uses those exact words, and then follows a montage of them doing exactly that.
He is one of the many purveyors of long expositionary tracts.
Sokka, don't.
Katara, do not hit that spear!
Really powerful benders in the Northern Water Tribe. My dad told me about it before he left. It's led by a princess because her father died.
You're not taking him anywhere.
No one is taking anybody away. So, are you the Avatar, Aang?
Right, moving on. Katara.
Angry.
Deadmother. Traumatized.
Yeah. Defensive.
Dreamer.
Kind of an anchor.
Naive.
She can be.
She can
Driven.
be. Yeah. Optimistic despite a history of having stuff going bad.
Do you think we'll really find airbenders?
You want me to be like you or totally honest?
Are you saying I'm a liar?
I'm saying you're an optimist. Same thing, basically.
Responsible.
Very mature.
Something of a teacher. Certainly for her age.
Stubborn.
She's 14, yeah. Stubborn, definitely. Yeah, she also forms the heart of the group. She is what keeps the boys going, whereas they would not probably have lost their way very early otherwise. Almost immediately becomes something of an object of apparently unrequited romantic affection for young Aang. And how much of that was present in Katara in the 2010 film by M. Night Shyamalan, The Last Airbender?
I didn't see Katara in that movie.
Nope.
Anywhere.
She's responsible, yep. Okay,
there was somebody with the same name.
To be
I'm
fair,
crying because it filled me with hope.
I don't think she did the most horrendous job. There are, and I know that Josh is probably
possibly
going to
she did the
find me
best
and
job.
kill me because of some of the things I'm going to say about this, but there are one or two, and I can count them on the fingers of one hand, one or two things that they did okay, and in a very, very superficial, one-dimensional way, she didn't do Katara terribly badly.
I wasn't left angered by her specifically.
I'll give you that.
It should say something that's the nicest thing we can find to say, though.
It didn't.
Yeah.
You did not make me angry as other things.
My name is Katara, and I'm the only waterbender left in the Southern Water Tribe. What's your name? How did you get here? How did you get in the ice? How'd you get all the way out here? You're not so upset? This is where you live? Is it okay if you tell me your name? Weren't they extinct a long time ago? Your friends were monks? He can bend earth? Leave him alone. My brother and the princess became friends right away. The scroll we had was proving to be helpful. Aang was practicing, but for some reason, he was having trouble with waterbending. For some reason...
Aang, also known as Ung, in the 2010 M. Night Shyamalan film, The Last Airbender.
I think we should call him McKnight. If he can't get somebody else's name right, we shouldn't get his right.
McKnight Shyamalan? No, because we do our research, Jerome. We must rise above it.
Very well.
Okay, yeah, Aang. To rhyme with the third syllable in boomerang. Fun-loving.
Free spirit.
I'm going to say naive again.
Pacifist.
Evasive.
Friendly.
Secretive.
Scared. Sometimes.
Childish.
Adorable.
Yep.
He is, really, because all we're saying here actually makes him sound quite annoying. He is one of the most adorable central protagonists in an animated show I've seen for a very long time. Interestingly enough, have you guys all seen the pilot that I put up for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. The first kid who did the voice for Aang was, on the annoying shade. So Zach Tyler Eisen, who plays him, is genuinely lovable.
I need to ask you something. What? Please, come closer. What is it? Will you go penguin sledding with me?
Name's Bonzu, Pippin-Pedalopsicopolis the third. My business is my business, young man, and none of yours. I got half a mind to bend you over my knee and pedal your backside.
He actually has kind of a kiddie look about him. Of all of the characters in this, he has baby features, and you, as an adult, don't immediately trust him as the central protagonist in terms of the fact that you're like, oh, come on, like you got troubles. But as it turns out, he's actually very secretive about those troubles and hides a great weight.
Not that you'd know.
Aye, we be casting off now.
What could you possibly do for a country of depraved little fire monsters?
I'm gonna throw them a secret dance party.
I think what's really great about Aang as well is that he fills in that kind of Boy Scout role that someone like Superman would. But while at the same time being much more complex than a Superman character normally is.
Because it makes more sense because he's a child and he grew up where he did. It makes sense that he's this Boy Scout, always has faith in people, wants to find the best way to help everybody.
What's also great is that Boy Scout nature of him almost is a flaw sometimes because he's not willing to take the appropriate action in certain situations because he doesn't want to hurt people and he doesn't want to harm anyone.
Yeah, he will always choose to evade rather than attack.
I think he does. You do get that impression that it's targeted at a younger audience because he doesn't have the usual hero's journey of battling with being, too angry at everything all the time and lashing out and not being able to get that anger under control. He almost has the opposite problem. The anger is there, but he won't allow it to inform on anything he does, which means he can't use it.
Yeah.
Well, I think he doesn't want to burden people with his emotional baggage. He creates this persona of, I'm fun-loving and I just want to make everyone smile to hide that, those scars that are just under the surface.
Which is a very, very childlike response to great trauma. To try and smooth everything over and be the one that makes everybody smile when everybody's angry and when everybody's unhappy. But in terms of him sort of not... I think you're spot on there about him not wanting to burden people, because ultimately the thing that is his biggest trauma, he is literally the only person in the world who can feel that, because of what's happened to his people.
Okay, so how much of that was present in the character of Ung in M. Night Shyamalan's 2010 masterpiece, The Last Airbender?
Zip, zilch, zero, none, nothing at all whatsoever.
Naive. That's about it.
I don't think he does come across that way in the film, though. Not really. In a lot of ways, he's too knowing about certain things.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, scratch naive.
The common element with all of these transitions from show to character is that basically the fun and spirit of the show is completely bled out, which leaves a lot of these characters with nothing left. Like Sokka, with Sokka it's especially noticeable because he is the fun character, and so with fun sapped out, he is literally nothing on screen. Aang, that fun, loving side of him is a big part of his character. With that gone, he's got very, very little left. Yeah, that's basically the common element you'll find with all of the character transitions.
Yeah, now that you mention it, if you were going to put them down to a straightforward comedy duo, Aang is the wacky one, and Sokka is the straight man, but frequently a lot funnier than the wacky one, and so key to the general humour of the show. Shyamalan has been quoted as saying that he took a lot of the more slapsticky elements out of the show, which is interesting because I think he cut a little bit too close to the bone with this one. He actually took all of the humour out of the show, and it's so integral to the show. They expect you to be laughing along with it so often that if you take it out completely and you make the film exceptionally po-faced, which he did, then it's in essence something entirely different. You're turning a comedy into a drama, which, in the right hands can work. It just wasn't the right hands at this point. This is a man who has spent his film career directing 90-minute supernatural thrillers with a twist at the end, which doesn't, by anyone's reckoning, sound like the person to direct this film. If you'd told me before he directed it, if I hadn't seen Lady in the Water, if I hadn't seen The Happening, if I hadn't seen... So he's actually been going steadily downhill since The Sixth Sense, which I will say right now is a masterpiece of cinema. One of the greatest ghost stories in cinematic history, indisputably. It's just that everything else he's done since then has been lukewarm, and in more recent years he's been doing terrible films. It's just baffling that he got chosen to do this at all.
I don't think it was necessarily doomed to be a failure. I mean, there were a lot of people questioning the wisdom of giving Lord of the Rings to Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
As it happened, he had a team around him who helped him create some of the finest films known to man.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it would appear Shyamalan didn't.
There's actually quite a lot of comparisons that are favourable with Lord of the Rings, specifically the wetter Lord of the Rings, with the animated version of Avatar. And I don't say that lightly. You guys know how much I adore those Lord of the Rings films. But the amount of time and effort and camaraderie and the sense of a huge family pulling together to make something that's bigger than all of them is present in both of those productions and should have been present in the films.
My name is Ung, and I'm the Avatar. Earthbenders!
Firebenders! He was bending tiny stones at us from behind a tree. It really hurt.
To get your airbending tattoos, you have to meditate for long periods of time without losing focus. Some of the great monks can meditate for 4 days.
Which element would you have to learn first?
Water. Water comes after air in the cycle. Air, water, earth, fire. We were forced under the water of the ocean.
Oh. It's time we show the Fire Nation that we believe in our beliefs as much as they believe in theirs.
We'll carry on with the character study, shall we? Zuko.
Rage.
Scarred.
Resentment. Secrecy.
Confusion. Conflicted. Ashamed.
Lack of ability to face facts.
Desperation.
Purposefully blinkered.
I'd say a bit of loneliness in there as well.
Very much, yeah.
Stubborn.
Abandoned.
Self-deprecating.
self-loathing to a degree.
Honor obsessed.
Sad.
There's a certain degree of arrogance about him as well.
True.
But it's kind of underlined by the fact that he has no faith in himself, which seems like a weird combination to have, but I think he has it.
Uncle, do you realize what this means?
Please sit. Why don't you enjoy a cup of calming jasmine tea?
I don't need any calming tea!
Right, now this one's going to be tough because Dev Patel is an extremely good actor. We've seen him act his socks off in Slumdog Millionaire. How much of this was present in the character of Zuko in the 2010 M. Night Shyamalan film, The Last Airbender?
I'm going to say that out of all the actors in this film, he was the best. I know that's damning with faint praise, but he did convey the anger. He did convey the sadness. Not to the complexity that the character in the show has, but it was there, it was present.
It was over the top.
Yeah, and he seemed like the only person who was trying to get something out of that script. I mean, the script is awful, and even
written by Shyamalan as well. We must.
I'll go with that. The dialogue is absolutely appalling. Yeah. It's so shallow.
Even the best actors can't make a bad script brilliant. I mean, a great script makes you act automatically. You only have to see some of Joss Whedon's stuff. Like, it's just so organic, the dialogue flows. This is so stilted that even though Dev Patel is putting a lot of effort into it, it's still kind of wooden and stiff.
I'd actually agree with you. I think he was the one good casting choice in this entire film. And if this were a better film and he were still in it, I think we might be talking about him as one of the best things about the movie. I just think he was put in an environment where he had literally nothing to work with. And I think he may seem like he kind of overacts in some cases because he's the only character on screen seeming to feel anything.
For the uninitiated, Zuko is the disgraced prince who has been sent out by the big bad, the Fire Lord, to find the Avatar, which initially is a ridiculous wild goose chase because this guy's been missing for 100 years and is presumed dead, so he's effectively sending his own son out to wander the world forever. And Zuko has this obsession with regaining his honor to find the Avatar and make his father happy. There is one scene in this film, which is an analogue of a scene in the animated show, where Iroh is talking to a small child about Zuko and what happened to actually get him out there. And they got the whole thing completely ass backwards. In the show, Iroh talks about Zuko to the men that he is leading and is often very abrasive with, and he tries to explain to the men why he is so abrasive, and also to us as an audience, why should we care about this guy? It dates back to the fact that his father, after Zuko, queried the notion of sending brand new young troops in as bait to get slaughtered.
Being right as well.
And being right, absolutely ethically on the money, was told that he was questioning his own father's orders there and was forced to duel his own father. He decided he was not going to fight his father, and his father saw that as an act of cowardice and scarred his own son in the eye with a ball of fire, in a horrific act that any parent or child would be heartbroken by. In the animated show, that is one of the first times we start to feel something for Zuko. It's worth spoiling that particular aspect of him right now, because Zuko is a tough character to like to begin with. In the film, a little kid recounts this tale to Iroh, who's just sort of sitting there going, and Zuko's just sort of, that's right, okay, everyone got that? Now we'll move on. And there's a few flashes of a child who's way too young having this done to him. It should have been the other way round. Small child should have asked Uncle Iroh, how did that boy get that scar? And Uncle Iroh should have told the small child the story, and we should have seen the chilling effect that would have on a small child, and felt that on both that and the sadness of Uncle Iroh recounting that. That would be even better than just telling the men. And I'm not going to say I could direct a film better than M. Night Shyamalan, but I could direct a film far better than M. Night Shyamalan. Anyway,
there you go.
You played a tortured soul in this film. You're like the tortured, banished prince of the Fire Nation. Now, was that also part of the attraction? playing villain, a different side of your character instead of the hapless hero?
Yeah, it really was. I really wanted to. He's got a dark side to him, and he's really. There's a lot of inner turmoil going on. You know, lots of internalization, and I really wanted to just try and put that through. And more than anything, you know, in the cartoonies, you know, obviously there are a lot more. You know, in the first season, things are a lot more one-dimensional with this character, and he's just angry all the time and intimidating. And you know, it's a hard balance between trying to, you know, be truthful to the real content, but also make it real. And within that, I just found out that the character is just a young boy that just wants to be loved by his father,
Right.
and is a bit more vulnerable. Instead of just being badass and scary, and there was a bit of vulnerability, I tried to squeeze in wherever I could.
On to Uncle Iroh, who I've just talked about. This is the amiable old chap who has put it upon himself to accompany Prince Zuko, his nephew, in his quest for the Avatar. It's also a semi-retirement for him. He's not been banished, but he has decided to go with his nephew. Words that would describe Iroh.
Wise.
Placid.
Worldly.
Balanced.
Humorous.
Spiritual.
Humble.
Friendly.
Lovable.
Hungry.
Hungry. Thirsty. Tea-loving. Like you would not believe you'll end up buying Jasmine tea because this guy won't shut up about it.
I did. It's good.
Bargain hunter.
Bargain hunter.
Music lover.
Just loves life in general.
He has an astonishing ability to both have exceptional dignity whilst being entirely undignified. It is such a tightrope to walk, but he manages it.
Powerful.
Powerful, yeah. He was voiced by the wonderful actor named Mako, who folks may remember from Conan the Barbarian.
Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
If you're a bit too young for it, you probably won't, but you might remember him as Aku from Samurai Jack.
Long ago in a distant land, I, Aku, the shape-shifting master of darkness, unleashed an unspeakable evil. But a foolish samurai warrior wielding a magic sword stepped forth to oppose me. Before the final blow was struck, I tore open a portal in time and flung him into the future, where my evil is law. Now the fool seeks to return to the past and undo the future that is Aku.
He has got the most incredible voice, to the point where just watching him for a few seconds as Splinter in the TMNT movie, suddenly he steals the entire show, and just the expression on this rat's face with Mako's voice coming out of him, I felt this incredible sadness for the character as he was worrying about his 4 sons and the possibility that they would never be able to reconcile their differences. And that comes across a lot in Iroh.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he also makes you laugh your socks off.
He is the ideal of what the Fire Nation could be.
Yes. He is balanced and powerful, but has the ability to understand what terrible things can happen if he uses his firebending.
And he respects other nations.
Yeah. He respects and embraces other nations, and all he really wants to do is retire and get himself a tea shop. So we'll talk about Iroh some more in the later episodes. But yeah, that's him in a nutshell, and he's maybe my favourite character, with Sokka being up there as well. And Zuko.
The sages tell us that the Avatar is the last airbender. He must be over 100 years old by now. He's had a century to master the 4 elements. I'll need more than basic firebending to defeat him. You will teach me the advanced set!
Very well. But first, I must finish my roast duck.
How many of those characteristics were present in the Uncle Iroh who featured in 2010's M. Night Shyamalan film, The Last Airbender.
He was pleasant.
He was there.
He was
related to Zuko.
He had the dignity and the kind of like caring for his nephew there, but again, with the fun sapped out, that's just half of the character. So he's just kind of left there to, if that, so he's just left there to stand kind of dignified and caring, and that's about all he's got.
And we're comparing this guy to Mako's performance, and I have to say, later on in the series, Mako delivers some of the best. Mako.
One of the characters in Legend of Korra is called Mako in reverence to Mako, who, by the way, sadly passed away in the middle of filming this animated show. And it's one of the most heartbreaking moments when you realise that the character had actually died while they were producing it, and there's a dedication at the end of one of the episodes, and the room will get a little dusty, let me tell you folks.
He delivers one of the best vocal performances I've seen on a TV show.
Back to the film, we won the film.
No, that's what I mean, but I'm comparing this performance to that, and it just comes up so short.
Flat.
Completely.
I mean, enough respect to Sean Taub, who was actually really pretty compelling. He was Jensen in Iron Man, the man who helped Tony make his first suit of armor and then died as a result of it. You know, he was actually pretty compelling in that.
Choice.
Yeah. And so I don't dispute that he could feasibly have pulled off an Uncle Iroh if he had Iroh. It's pronounced Iroh to rhyme with pyro. I believe he could feasibly have pulled it off, but he would have had to have been given a good script and told, this guy's funny.
I don't think he plays... do I call him Iroh?
Call him Iroh to distinguish him.
I don't think he plays Iroh all that different to Jensen, to be honest. He's got very similar expressions. The way that he relates to the person who's in his charge is quite similar. One of the things that really wound me up about him, actually, is that if you look at the way that Iroh interacts with Zuko, and specifically Zuko's quest in the TV show, he keeps himself distanced from it. He doesn't get involved. He's there for Zuko, but he does not allow himself to be drawn into the Avatar hunt. But Iroh is right there with him.
Yeah, he actually tests the Avatar in a gentle kind of way, but he's like, right, here's the Avatar test, which they made up. This is how we know you're the Avatar.
Put it in the wrong place.
And then he says, you know, oh, well, we're going to have to keep you here now, sorry. Which, I don't see Iroh doing that at all.
I will say one thing. Iroh is the only person who can properly firebend.
Yeah.
Yes!
That's so annoying in the movie.
Yes, because
in the movie, firebenders cannot create their own fire. In the animated show, firebenders can create their own fire.
That's what makes them so scary.
Yeah. Waterbenders need to find a water source. Earthbenders, of course, need to be around Earth. Airbenders, of course, unless they're in a vacuum, which is unlikely, have always got air at their disposal.
That's why they were got rid of first, because airbenders pose quite a threat to firebenders.
Despite the fact that they're not
because the
aggressive.
Avatar was amongst them and they were trying to wipe him out.
Yeah.
Also, it makes sense that those other forms of bendings have those limitations, because there's basically water everywhere. There's earth everywhere. There's air everywhere. Fire is not as common as those other three, so
it requires something to make.
Yeah. So actually, firebenders in this movie are rubbish, because all you have to do is put out all the fires and then you could just water bend them to death. I don't understand why the water benders in this film had any issues fighting these guys, because they're surrounded by snow and water, and all the firebenders have got are a couple of lamps. It's ridiculous.
What happens when it rains?
Well, they're a bit stuck, aren't they?
Why are you doing this? Who are you?
Are you an airbender, boy?
Who are you?
What's your name?
You're too soft, General Iroh.
Just wait till everyone's fighting everyone.
Everyone!
Oh, I see.
As many fires in this city should be put out as possible when the alarm sounds. We want to minimize their bender sources.
Bring me all your elderly!
There's Earth right beneath your feet.
I am pleased.
You're lying!
Okay, there's two other major characters who feature in the movie, one of whom probably shouldn't have at all, who I'm at least just going to ask you to cover, because one of them does feature pretty heavily in the first season. Admiral Zhao.
Arrogant. undisciplined,
sadistic, entitled.
Jason Isaacs.
Hello to Jason Isaacs.
We are the sons and daughters of fire, the superior element.
It's not immediately apparent. He's speaking in an American accent, and I had to be told, but it is so Jason Isaacs once you realise how, it's Isaacs performing the voice and owning the character.
And do you know who he is in the film? Not Jason Isaacs.
Not at all.
He's the pizza guy from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy who annoyed and then fired poor Peter Parker. Not exactly a figurehead of fear.
I love him on The Daily Show, but like that's the most baffling casting choice of the... And there are many baffling casting choices in this film, but that is the most by far.
I don't know. The next one's pretty baffling too. Driven and somewhat maniacal and cruel and a bully and everything that it really takes to be a two-dimensional bad guy.
And everything that's kind of wrong with the Fire Nation at this point in time.
Yeah. But how is he in the film?
He is
directed by M. Night Shyamalan in 2010's Last
idiot.
A wet idiot.
He gets
slimy,
bossed around by his boss, which is reasonable, but he never gives any...
Like a boss.
He never gives much of an indication that he's capable of controlling anything.
Yeah.
He just seems like...
How we got there.
Yeah.
He seems like an irritation rather than a nemesis.
Yeah.
He seems like that guy at your workplace who got promoted a couple places too high and is just like really, like completely incapable and bumbling, but thinks he's powerful.
Michael
Gareth Keenan. We went there.
In the movie, it's possible Zhao actually has to deliver the worst, most clumsy expositionary dialogue of all. Most of his lines appear to be about scrolls. And folks, beware any movie with sentences that start with, "as you know," because if the person who the line is being delivered to already knows, why is it even being said?
As you know, I conducted a raid on the Great Library. I have found scrolls in the library.
What have you learned from the stolen scrolls?
In my raid of the Great Library earlier this year,
Found a scroll?
I found a scroll.
Yep, thought so.
This is a scroll from the Great Library.
Everybody got that?
As you know, the Fire Lord has banished his son, the Prince, and renounced his love of him. Your failure in the 100-day siege of Ba Sing Se won't be held against you. Your son died in that siege, didn't he? Again, I offer my condolences on your nephew burning to death in that terrible accident. As you know, I conducted a raid on the Great Library, which most said didn't even exist.
Get on with it.
Yes! Get on with it!
Okay, yeah, so he's there to give Zuko someone to be up against so that you maybe don't feel too bad about Zuko. Yeah, he says he's functioned very well in the animated show, not so well in the film. Final major character. Actually, I'm going to say this one because it's kind of important. Appa. Appa is Aang's flying bison. He is a big, somewhere across between a manatee and Cat Bus from My Neighbor Totoro. A big, shaggy, flying
10-ton
buffalo. So, one single word to describe Appa.
Lovable.
Reliable. Chewbacca.
Tough.
Yeah. Resilient.
Gentle.
Cheering.
Vulnerable at times. He doesn't speak, he's just a flying bison, but he is a tangible character that you care about to the point where, and this is not really spoiling much, at some point in Series 2 he gets taken away and you really feel his loss.
Everybody does.
He's Aang's only real link with his past.
That's true. This bison was with Aang in the iceberg when they found him, and he has known him since he was a tiny child. Okay, so how much of that was present in the Appa in the 2010 movie directed by M. Night Shyamalan, The Last Airbender?
Appa was in it? That I noticed a flying carpet.
Yeah.
Space.
He wasn't so much a cat bus as just a bus.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say they might as well have just replaced him with like a flying broomstick or an airplane or something like that.
I was going to say flying carpet there, but the flying carpet in Aladdin had more personality than this.
Yeah, that's very true.
Oh, Bugman.
It's also an uncanny nightmare-looking creature. Like
yes,
for a film that came out less than 2 years ago, there's no excuse for that kind of like really creepy sort of feeling you get when it looks at you in the eye.
Alex found the excuse. The person who was...
Wait. Hold that back,
we're coming to that, are we?
Coming to that.
Okay.
This is the grand finale.
I'll hold off. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, no, there's reasons why Appa is the way he is. But in the film, he is mostly absent. He gets about 4 seconds of face time. By that I mean you can see his eyes for 4 seconds. Most of the rest of him on screen is just like from the rear or from the side, but not really his eyes. And it's very important that you see Appa's face. It's very important because he is helping Aang. It's his steed. This is his ride. He is the Millennium Falcon. He is Serenity. He is the ship, the thing that carries Team Aang. But at the same time, he is alive and he is a being. This is a creature that you adore by the middle end of this series. And in this, furry bus. With a face, apparently... Oh, it's Ko at work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Been stealing faces. And finally... Actually, no, let's do Momo, shall we? A few brief words to describe Momo.
Inquisitive.
This is a small lemur monkey bat thing that sort of seems at first like Jar Jar Binks, but, turns out to be, carry on, single words.
Hilarious.
Murky.
Very cute.
Lovable as well.
All the best qualities of a monkey. Dedicated.
Helpful. Cute little eyes. Eyes are cute.
It's more than just cute.
Yeah.
It's more than just cute.
Charismatic to a certain extent.
It transpires throughout the series that in his own lemur bat little monkey-ish way, he has started to care about the characters that he ends up dropping into the laps of. And although he never speaks, again, and is kind of there for, I would say, comic relief in a comedy, he's not really there to serve the narrative that much. The way they treat him and interact with him informs upon their characters. It's kind of important to that end. Describe Momo in this movie.
Present.
Barely.
Even present?
I was going to say absent.
There were just bits of the film where they have him fly in and no one reacts to him. He's just completely tacked on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude.
They don't even mention him as Momo in the movie.
Yeah, no, he's never named.
They were referred to.
It's kind of a token, oh, look, everyone likes this thing. We don't know what for, but there you go. There's Momo.
There is a bit in the film where the camera's facing his back, and Momo flies in and lands on his shoulder, and it doesn't even notice it whatsoever. It's just been tacked on there for the fun of it.
Like maybe he wasn't even in the film, apart from that one bit where they say, it's a lemur bat. Yeah. And they just sort of like, look, we can probably afford with an extra $3,000 to put him in these 3 shots. So, yeah. Afterthought is probably a good word.
I was going to say, maybe they didn't know until they got towards the end whether or not they'd be able to afford him. So they just kind of slotted him in occasionally.
I'm trying to work out, there's a fine line again that they're treading between being able to afford and being bothered. So, yeah, I think they figured...
150 million went somewhere.
Well, if you're bothered, you find a way to afford.
Okay, final character for this film and for this first season. Fire Lord Ozai. This is the big bad, the Emperor, the Phoenix King, the one who presides over the Fire Nation, and is he the grandson of the Fire Lord who first started this war around the same time that Aang disappeared?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Single words. Voiced by Mark Hamill, I might add.
See, this is a difficult one.
Mysterious, menacing, at this point anyway.
Yes.
Intimidating.
Terrible parent.
Yes.
Distant.
Psychotic.
Self-obsessed.
Paranoid.
Childish, kind of.
Yeah.
Power hungry.
It's appropriate, actually, that he's voiced by the Joker. He shares many similarities with the character, all the bad ones. And in the 2010 M. Night Shyamalan film, The Last Airbender, he is played by Cliff Curtis, who was in Sunshine, a film I love, and he was very good in Sunshine. I believe he turned up in Die Hard 4.
Yep.
And, he plays Fire Lord Ozai. Now, one of the main things that anyone could tell you about Fire Lord Ozai, for the first 2 series, you only ever see him from behind or in silhouette.
Or you see his chin.
Mysterious. You might see his chin. Mostly it's just the back of his head and his top knot and his frame, but not his face.
He's supposed to be a domineering figure.
Yeah. He's like Dr. Claw.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. That's right, Mad Cat. And how does Cliff Curtis play him?
Not well.
He's not scary. That's for
Overly
sure.
entitled rich guy?
Lukewarm, pompous.
Like he kind of has a meeting to get to, and anything that he's having to talk about now is kind of a bother right now.
Executive-y.
Yeah,
that's a word. He's a bit like Donald Trump.
He has quite a beige personality.
Yes.
He can be a bit manipulative occasionally, like he plays Zhao's need to get to find the Avatar off against Zuko's need to find the Avatar to sort of,
They
push
did
him along a
focus
bit.
on, regarding Zhao, he is ultimately a someone who's out to climb up the ranks and to worm his way into power. They did get that aspect right about him, but they lost all of the threatening aspects of him as well. They needed a villain to really give a genuine sense of threat. However, interesting enough, by showing him, you take that sense of threat away.
I was going to say, they've removed a massive amount of menace from all of the people who are supposed to be the bad guys.
Here's what I'm rounding up to. In one of the 3 deleted scenes, Firelord Ozai gives a messenger who tells him that they screwed up at the very end and the Avatar got away, a burning... Well, no, he sets the field that he's standing in on fire and says, when this reaches 3 fields, I want you to try to put it out. And then walks off smirking to himself because he's just allowed this messenger to die. And it's like, oh my god, he's so evil, he kills his own men. Yeah.
You think my son is this person?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try not to be angry. I'm going to try not to swear, because there are hopefully children present. But there has been no progress since Star Wars with this thing. Star Wars actually plays in very heavily. This film is the 4th in George Lucas's prequel trilogy. It is exactly the same in terms of sucking everything that was magical and interesting and fun out of the original trilogy and giving us a giant green screen, wooden, dull, lifeless, soulless.
Well done, Katara.
Thank you, Master Paku.
What were you feeling?
Thoughts about my family ran through me.
Were they all good thoughts?
Some were sad.
Just like Lucas, Shyamalan makes the mistake of trying to explain emotions and simple fantasy premises in a painfully dull, patronising and lifeless way. Nobody ever expresses anything in less than the amount of words it takes to adequately explain these concepts, as though to a particularly stupid child. He seems to believe these are difficult to grasp or not digestible unless reduced to rudimentary sticks and blocks, delivered in a fashion that ignores the past few decades of progress. His ridiculously low expectations of his audience proved insulting to all but 6% of critics who passed this off as an okay kids film, and they also happen to be perpetuating the same erroneous myth that children as a whole are dumb, or that artless vacuous fare that you wouldn't watch yourself is acceptable to leave the next generation sat in front of.
What's a good word for everyone running round and round and round and making a big lot of noise but really not amounting to much? Caucus? Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah.
Caucus Race from Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Yeah, everyone in this film is a headless chicken charging about the place, bending out the yin-yang, literally, but nothing actually happens. And it doesn't happen to anyone. The thing that's really compelling about Avatar is not the goings-on, although those are actually quite, epic and huge. It's who it goes on to and who it goes on with. We are with Team Avatar every step of the way, and we even start to really feel, even by the middle end of Season 1, for Zuko somewhat. And they didn't do that in the film at all.
I would rank this film lower than the Star Wars prequels, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because there's at least a certain, like, the Star Wars prequels are bad and dumb, but there's a certain, at least, level of slight professionalism and a professional ability kind of holding it together, where it's just kind of boring and really disappointing. This is just, I think this is the most amateur blockbuster film I've ever seen.
It is a mess.
It feels like a terrible
it's worse than the prequels. I'm just very angry at how the prequels were constructed, with the ethos of let's just stick it on green screen and put it together piecemeal.
Just characters don't even interact. They exchange exposition at each other. And like that point you mentioned with like the kid in that little restaurant that Iroh and Zuko were in. That's even like, why call over the kid? It's like, kid, come here. I need someone else to deliver this exposition for me.
Look, I don't want to know, old man. Look, you're going to stand here. I got some stuff to lay on you.
I'm also kind of amazed that this film manages to rush through all the major plot points of season 1 and yet still feel like it's dragging its heels across the floor all the way to the end.
How could something feel rushed and slow at the same time? It's like someone fired a tortoise at us.
Yeah, it's efficient in all the wrong ways. He uses like voice narration over footage when he doesn't need to. And montage where he doesn't need to. He uses exposition where he could actually show things. Like from the very beginning, the opening title crawl of text has someone reading it to you at the same time. He could literally be showing you anything at that time.
I mean, do it the same way the show does it.
Have a voiceover.
Yeah, he has a voiceover and a title crawl at the same time, which I think sets the tone perfectly for what the rest of this film is going to be.
Doesn't Highlander have that as well?
Does it?
Or a Blade Runner, one of the bad cuts of Blade Runner, I think, has that.
I will say one thing, though. Whoever cut the trailers for these films earned his paycheck, because watch those again, those still look good, and it is amazing. He has taken the best, he took the shots that were actually framed pretty well and where the effects look good. He cut them together nicely. He even cut frames out of some of the effects shots to give them more impact. He earned his money. He still makes it look like a good movie. It's amazing.
See, I think it actually worked in reverse. I think they did the trailer first, and then they took the trailer and cut it up and tried to fill in the bits in between.
That would make more sense.
The power to control the elements is bestowed upon a chosen few. The Fire Nation has declared war. But some believe there is still hope.
I always knew you returned. You are the only one who can control all the elements and bring peace to our world.
I will stop them.
You may already be too late.
I will not live in peace until I find him.
There are reasons each of us are born. We have to find those reasons.
It has begun.
Okay, hang on. Before we get into the frenzied shivving of this squealing hog monkey, and I ask you all, ladies and gentlemen, once again, to keep this as PG rated as possible, let's look at things they get right. From the very beginning, the intro choreography where it's like earth, fire, air, water, they didn't have to do that, but they did it. And that was a little touch which I actually liked.
It's nice that it's there, but it doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good.
It's not framed well, it's not cut well or edited. It's just, it's a nice thought, but it feels just very shallow and surfacey because it's not executed nicely.
True. Bear with me, man. I had to find like 3 things to say. I
found like 1 or 2 things, and even they are like backhanded insults, honestly.
I will give one compliment. I kind of like the design of Aang's tattoo.
I agree.
Oh no! What? I hate the design of his tattoo. I think it's really messy.
It wouldn't look as good to just have a straight up blue arrow going all the way over his body.
Wouldn't it?
Are you sure?
Not in live action.
I'm not sure.
Sure about that? You don't want to reconsider on that
I'm
one?
not disagreeing with you, Jerome. I'm
in all seriousness,
asking all of us to ask this question of ourselves right now.
In live action, I don't think that would have worked. I kind of like the fact they tried to do this sort of henna, sort of...
Easiest way to tell is if we find pictures of Aang cosplayers and see what they look like. Hang on. Basically, the best Aang cosplay is going to look like what they could possibly have done on film. Oh, mind you, actually, that one's pretty good. Okay, it would look more cartoony. That would appear to go against their remit of making this... It seems like they're trying to make this for adults because they threw all the humour and the kiddiness out the window and they made everyone deliver their lines with extreme seriousness, so you'd imagine they're trying to appeal to young adults.
They don't know who their audience is. They're trying to appeal to the fans as well as to the people who've never seen it or have known nothing about it.
It's over-designed. It's too much. There's too many patterns and stuff going on in there. I just liked the simplicity of the blue arrow. And I understand what Jerome is saying. Maybe the blue arrow would look a bit cartoony in live action. But they didn't have to go that far. They could have just had a very simple design in the arrow. Not this overcomplicated mess that looks... It just looks bad.
Are you talking about the tattoo or the film?
The film.
Nice.
Both, yeah.
It's not what actually even bothered me about the tattoo. Is the fact that it didn't all connect and flow through his body. Like, kind of broke up. That's what I love about the colouring. It's about each point of his body being connected to these points, if you know what I mean. It's fully flowing all down to the bottom of his legs, down his arms, all down his back. It's all connected. Whereas in the film, it didn't feel as connected.
Okay, let's talk about a few other things that they did right. Aang is friendly and looks about right, whether you like his tattoo or not. Does he look about right?
He looks about the right age.
Yeah.
You got the age right.
He's bald.
He looks okay, and he does very much sell capable martial artists in his movements.
That is because he is a capable martial artist.
I know, because that's the only thing. That's the only reason he got the job. But when I watch something like the Kill Bill films, I really love them. They're great, but Uma Thurman, I never buy as being a capable fighter. I see, she knows the moves, but maybe it's just because I've done martial arts stuff or because I analyze movement for a living. But I never see the precision or the control or the full. I never see somebody who There's some people you can watch the way they move, and it's like they are in full control of their body, and I never get that from her. With him, seeing him do some of these bending and forms and stuff, he is clearly very capable at that, at least, if nothing else.
The problem is, he's not a particularly good actor.
No, I'd agree. I would actually, I wish they would have hired somebody who could do the acting part, and then just given him 6 months to learn enough martial arts to get by, because it would kind of work for Aang, too, because Aang's very loose and tumbly and out of control a bit at times, and just, I think it could work and fit.
Well, ultimately, M. Night Shyamalan is very good at... Oh, God, I can't even say teasing really good performances out of his actors, because he can't. So many of his films, after The Sixth Sense, everyone just delivers their lines in this awful wooden way and don't speak like real people would speak. So I can't even say he's a character actor.
Joaquin Phoenix is an excellent actor, and he was...
Bollards.
...in Signs.
You can't say bollards. There are children present.
Sorry, and he was awful in Signs.
Okay, so ultimately, he's not a martial arts director. So, getting in a martial artist and trying to sort of make up for the shortfall means you are then required to be good at filming martial arts. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
I mean, putting a martial artist against no other martial artist doesn't make much sense.
That's true, actually. Everyone else's choreography in this film is awful.
Yeah, that's the thing that's really missing for me in this movie, is that in the animated show... Those fights are superbly choreographed. especially when you get into the back half of season 3. And these fights just feel like somebody filmed a martial arts competition from the stands.
Well, there are a million films with martial arts in them.
Yeah.
And so many we've got to choose from. So you've got to do something to make these things more special. And getting in people who can't do martial arts is not the way.
Yeah.
I would have much preferred a martial arts film with not as much story than to this.
Yeah.
If they tried to come at it from the angle of looking at proper martial arts films and then trying to make one of those for children.
Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda does what
there you go.
What these guys were trying to do, and it does it so superbly.
I think Kung Fu Panda is a better representation of what Avatar could be on the screen.
I've also said this before, it's a retelling of Star Wars, and it does that better than the prequels.
Yeah.
In the end, the Last Airbender series is much more about characters than it is about the fighting or the martial arts anyway.
Yeah.
So in the long run, getting strong actors and obviously writing the characters better, but getting strong actors is probably the better tactic, and someone who can write characters. If Joss Whedon had done this, it would have been amazing.
I keep name-checking that guy as to who I would love to have done this film. And if there's going to be a Korra movie, and frankly, if this show really takes off like it's doing right now, there's going to be a Korra movie. If he's not doing Avengers at the time, Joss Whedon. Especially with Korra, because he's directing teenagers. That's even better. Like, late teenagers.
The writing suits him, because it's very much the same kind of... I'm serious when I need to be serious, but I know how to have some fun as well.
It does feel like Firefly at times as well. I've compared it to Firefly in the past. So folks, if you're still not convinced but you love Firefly, that should be enough. Seriously. Okay.
I'll tell you one other good thing about it that I tweeted to you last night. Toph is not in it.
Yes, I would actually rather see Toph never in film at all than done badly in film. But then again, I would rather have seen this never in film at all than done
agreed.
badly.
But it's the same as it's the same way that we can still be grateful that Han Solo was never in the prequels and not ruined. We can still be glad that Toph has remained untouched.
Yeah. We'll talk about Toph in episode 3, Earth.
I wouldn't go so far as to say I was impressed, but I thought whoever they got to do the costumes did a pretty good job.
I'll give you that.
Yeah, I do like the Water Tribe. Aang's stuff, costume looked pretty good.
For no reason really at all, they made his little red shoulder thingy into like a cloak.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that's kind of awkward, but...
Or a Jedi robe.
Kind of annoyed me in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The whole of Water Tribe is Eskimo except for these 3 white people.
Yep. We had a very long discussion about that today.
Kind of weird.
If you Google Inuit actor, the Caucasians who played Sokka and Katara come up. Now that surely means that there aren't that many for them to choose from.
No, to be fair, it's mainly because there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of people blogging about the fact that they're playing Inuit characters and they're not overly happy about that fact.
There was a huge kerfuffle about racism regarding this film, and about the notion that it's a very multicultural series, and there's some very specific cultures, cultural influences portrayed in the series. So, for example, the Earth Kingdom, very much influenced by China. The Fire Nation, very much influenced by Japan. The Northern and Southern Water Tribes, very much influenced by Inuit, and the Air Nomads, Tibetan.
Yeah.
And for no real given reason, Shyamalan and company, because I don't just want to blame him, seem to have woven Indian in mythology into the Fire Nation. And quite a lot of Caucasian into the Inuit of the water tribes. So
I think you actually you hit on something that I didn't identify before. Actually, when you said multicultural, Shyamalan's justification of the fact that there are people of different skin tones in this film is what it comes down to. Yes, there are lots of people of lots of different colours in this film, but where's the culture? Where's all the cultural references that were so essential to the TV show?
Yeah.
They're not there. There isn't enough depth for them to go into any of it. And when they do add the occasional thing in, it's handled very ham-fistedly and very inappropriately. One of the first scenes, which made me grit my teeth tremendously, largely because of the expositionary angle of it, is where Sokka and Katara are walking out on the ice, and he's basically telling her how he hunts. She would know that.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to explain to her that he's looking for footprints in the flipping snow. I mean, for goodness sake, anybody who's ever followed a squirrel through a park can probably figure it out.
Having said that, they do have a big discussion about waterbending at the beginning of the animated show, which seems somewhat fatuous if Katara's been doing that for years. In an interview with the Washington Post, Shyamalan said, anime is based on ambiguous facial features. It's meant to be interpretive. It's meant to be... By the way, he just classed Avatar as anime. It's meant to be inclusive of all races, and you can see yourself in all these characters. This is a multicultural movie, and I'm going to make it even more multicultural in my approach to its casting. There's African Americans in this movie, so it's a source of pride for me. He's pointing out the fact that there don't appear to be any African... Were you angered by that, Jerome?
No, not really.
No African Americans in the series. Right, so it's a source of pride for me.
I'd be a bit disconcerted if there weren't.
The irony that protesters would label this with anything but the greatest pride, that the movie poster has Noah and Dev on it, and my name on it, I don't know what else to do. Rathbone, you know, the white guy who was in Twilight, was also one to dismiss the complaints in an interview with MTV, saying, I think it's one of those things where I pull my hair up, shave the sides, and I definitely need a tan. It's one of those things where hopefully the audience will suspend disbelief a little bit. Yeah, you could say the same thing about a blackface routine. The controversy wasn't well received by critics either. Film critic Roger Ebert was one of the critical voices against the casting when asked about casting a white cast to portray the characters. He said the original series Avatar The Last Airbender was highly regarded and popular for 3 seasons on Nickelodeon. Its fans take it for granted that its heroes are Asian. Why would Paramount and Shyamalan go out of their way to offend these fans? There are many young Asian actors capable of playing the parts. Jevon Phillips of the Los Angeles Times noted that despite Shyamalan's attempts to defuse the situation, the issue will not fade away or be overlooked, and that the film exemplifies the need for a debate within Hollywood about racial diversity in its films. Now that kind of underlines for me the idea that even though you could go on for quite some time about the fact that there were plenty of roles that could have been taken by actors more suited to these particular cultural reference points, because it's one of the things that's offensively bad about the film, but it's full of offensively bad things, that is symptomatic of a larger issue and does actually need to be talked about.
I mean, and I kind of understand Shyamalan's point about the vagueness in anime features, and that makes sense. Like I said, I have a hard time getting too wound up about it because the rest of, like you said, the rest of the film is so broken. And the Avatar world has always felt...
have fixed everything else if they'd been like, oh, at least Aang was Asian.
Definitely not, no. I mean, and the world of Avatar has always felt like a bit of a cultural mishmash anyway. Like, yes...
Everyone speaks in an American accent, for a start.
Yeah, well, there's that. But, and, like, every nation, like you said, has...
Except George Takei. Hello.
We'll get to that one later.
He's only in it one episode, but he's just great fun. Carry on.
Oh, yeah. Like you said, each of the nations have kind of have a main influence, but there's a lot of other cultures woven into each nation as well. And I feel like Heimdall and Thor, if the resulting character was awesome, you would have heard no complaints. Like, you could have gotten away with it. But especially with Katara and Sokka, look, even I'm doing it.
Even you and that.
Especially with Katara and Sokka, like, you've got 2 lead characters who are already beloved by fans who clearly aren't pasty white kids. That is such an awesome chance to give someone who isn't another pasty white kid a major blockbuster role, which it's just a disappointing missed opportunity. Like, I'm not mad about it on the whole, but especially with those two, it really feels like that was an opportunity.
Put out a call for Inuit young actors. There's probably about 100 in the world. At least give them a chance before you start hiring the little white kids who can get every role under the sun.
Or at least
Because there's never going to be a shortage of little white kids in films.
Or at least hire talented white kids.
Oh, cruel but true. Were these kids capable of actually having any talent? It was missed by everyone else.
The actors who played Fire Nation are mostly played by Indians. M. Night Shyamalan is, of course, of Indian descent. And the Fire Nation is a traditional villain. I mean, why do you think Shyamalan decided that? Is he trying to exercise his own personal demons?
No. It's not as deep as that. I mean, once I got cast as Zuko, basically, obviously the person that plays my father, the person that plays my uncle, becomes... so they need to look like they're related to me in a sort of way. And, it made sense. They're trying to make it, echo, certain parts of real life, as much as possible. So if you think about the world today, you're going to get a majority of different looking people if you go to Africa or India, whereas if you come to, if you go to China. And so, there's 4 nations in this world, and I think everyone's represented, every culture. And if the film does go to the sequels, you're going to see a lot more, more Asian characters, and you're talking about, there's so many different people that are going to be coming to the film. But it's again a story about not judging a book by its cover. And if you think of my character, in essence, he's not really a villain. So when people say, he was just a villain, or he wasn't villainous enough, you just weren't really looking at the character enough, because my character in particular is not really a villain, and he has a potential to be a hero, maybe.
I do want to see the future chapters. Congratulations again, and good luck, Mr. Dev. Thank you.
Did you hear that? He called him Mr. Dev.
Good luck, Mr. Dev.
Brilliant.
Anything else that was good about this film? I thought the Northern Water Tribe section was well realised in terms of it. It felt like there was an actual big set there, even if it was 98% green screen.
Is it just me? While we're on the Northern Water Tribe, during the siege, was there a bit where M. Night Shyamalan was trying to ape the 2 towers?
Yep.
Because there's a scene where all the Water Tribe soldiers are on the wall, and they're banging their spears and stuff like that, and the guy's giving his war cry. And it's like, wait a minute, this is filmed very similar to a scene in the 2 towers, except I don't care about any of you.
Yeah.
To be fair, there is a scene in the show where they pan down and you have an aerial view of the Northern Water Tribe city, and it's
kind of Minas Tirith.
It's patently Minas Tirith.
I mean, the comparisons are definitely there with Lord of the Rings. This is a bit like Helm's Deep. It's definitely not a terrible bit of the film.
But again, in the show, it feels more like a nod, more like an acknowledgement that this is one of the things that they're inspired by. In the film, it seems more like he's just copying it.
He's borrowing imagery, hoping to get some of the emotional impact, but failing. But does anybody else kind of laugh at with Zhao's death, just the little 4-man Water Tribe death squad that walks in out of nowhere? We just come in, they just dodge a firebolt. They look like badass cowboys walking into a saloon. They straight up murder the guy and then turn and walk away as if there was an explosion happening behind him. It's like
just a man drowning.
This layer, it just didn't sit well for me. It just didn't fit at all.
No, it doesn't. It's
murderous. It was horrible.
They took out the whole water spirit coming up.
Which, I can understand. Fine, if you want to cut out the whole Koizilla thing, then just have Zhao
fall in the water.
Have him fall in the water, or have him refuse to run away from Aang's big huge wave, or have him kind of be falling off the bridge into the water, and Zuko tries to save him, but Zhao refuses to be and falls in. There's something to tie it in. Don't bring in a Water Tribe death squad out of nowhere to come to the
thing that was great about the show is that his death in the show feels like he sealed his own fate. This is a direct result of his actions. Whereas in the film, it's just like, hi waterbenders, Oh, lovely. Thank you for killing me. It's just, it removes that, like, poetic justice that the series had.
It has a feeling of you're on the wrong side of town, buddy. It's sort of like you soft.
We don't take candy.
That's that.
Charlie Jane Anders, in the review by IO9, criticised the personality-free hero, the nonsensical plot twists, the CG clutter, the bland romance, the new age pablum, concluding that Shyamalan's true achievement in this film is that he takes the thrilling cult TV series Avatar: The Last Airbender and systematically leeches all the personality and soul out of it in order to create something generic enough to serve as an universal spoof of every epic ever. Anders summarised the experience of watching the film by stating that actually, my exact words when I walked out of the film were, "Wow, this makes Dragon Ball Evolution look like a masterpiece." Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian noted an unfortunate linguistic problem that reduced British viewers to a state of nervous collapse. Colloquially, the word bender is slang for homosexual male, giving an entirely different meaning to lines such as, "I could tell at once that you were a bender, and that you would realise your destiny." Bradshaw commented that the response from his audience to such lines was deafeningly immature and would inevitably be repeated in every cinema in the land showing The Last Airbender. That's depressing. But this is something that us folks in Britain are going to come up against every time we start trying to suggest this show to other people, because it's a barrier. It's basically, it's the equivalent of him being called the last air fag.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a hump to overcome.
I was going to say people might have got it out of their systems with Futurama, but in all fairness, the people who are going to snigger at it probably aren't watching Futurama.
And wouldn't get it. I mean, even Paul Shotton, our beloved mascot, now finds the title of this hilarious. I believe he and his entire audience watched the trailer for a show that none of them had actually ever watched, and then howled with laughter when the title came up.
Is that why it was just called Legend of Aang in this country?
Principally, that might have been one of the reasons.
That would make sense.
Yeah. One other thing that they actually got right, which is, and this is a very rare occurrence, which the cartoon got wrong. All I'll say is Princess Yui's hair goes black.
That was a nice touch.
That was a nice touch. And that's something that was going to happen in the animated show and didn't.
Something on Princess Yui.
Yeah.
The character who played her in the movie, actually got a part in the next series.
Yeah, she was a huge fan of The Legend of Aang and went on to voice Asami, who is got a lovely, deeply attractive voice in Legend of Korra. However, in the film, her character, which is astonishingly dismissive about absolutely everything. Things happen dispassionately and goes, "I have to go somewhere. Take me there, Sokka." They go away. They come back. We don't know where they went.
Which I think that her performance in that movie and then in Legend of Korra shows just how much a great script and a great director affects an actor's performance. In The Legend of Korra, she's great.
She's very good.
Yeah. In this film, she's like a wet fish, you know.
She felt very much
ironic.
Like Jessica Alba.
Yeah, if the Star Wars prequels proved anything, is that no number of great actors can save a horrible script.
Yeah.
Those films are packed with great actors.
Portman, Christopher Lee, Terence Stamp, Liam Neeson, Jake Lloyd. I mean, the list goes on. Actually, on that note, Sokka is Obi-Wan in this. Young Obi-Wan in Phantom Menace. Katara is pretty much Padme. Aang is young Jake Lloyd Anakin. Zuko is angry Hayden Christensen Anakin. Iroh is Qui-Gon Jinn. Zhao is General Grievous. And Ozai is Darth Tyrannus. Not even managing to be as scary or as mad, because that would have been something, as Darth Sidious. Like I said, this feels like another one of Lucas's prequels. Just in terms of how limp and lackluster and just sort of churned out it is. And the effects supervisor was on Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which would explain how they were able to cut and paste so many effects in and have actors acting against green screen. I say acting against green screen.
Moving against green screen.
Moving against green screen. Yes, appearing against green screen.
You know what makes it even worse? They constantly slowed down and zoomed on all the CG stuff. Making it even worse.
This was one of those retconned 3D jobbies where they made it 3D after the fact. And James Cameron himself expressed He already had a bugbear about the film as it was because, as we all know, he released a little film called Avatar around about the same time as this thing. And there was a dispute for several years in Hollywood regarding over who was going to get the rights to actually have the name Avatar. Cameron claimed that he had come up with the name Avatar sometime in the 80s when he came up with this idea. And, of course, the Avatar show had been going for several years with this established name. Now, in retrospect, I actually think Cameron's film should have been called something else entirely.
Yeah.
Because, ultimately, just Avatar would have worked so much better for this than simply calling it The Last Airbender. It would probably have gotten more business in Britain. But then again, it doesn't need or deserve more business.
No, it doesn't.
So there's many other things that should have been different. However, the problem is that whenever I talk about Avatar, people are like, no, not that Avatar. So if I ever mention it, I will refer to that as James Cameron's Avatar.
I would actually I wouldn't recommend it. I would suggest that this is a movie worth watching as a lesson, or as a, if you're interested in film at all or analysis, watching that side by side with the show is a great way to just analyze and see how wrong
not to do things.
Yeah, how amazing.